Maya had never lived alone before. At 23, she was finally ready to start her own life in the big city. The apartment building looked old but charming from the outside, with red brick walls and fire escapes that reminded her of movies she used to watch as a kid. "This is it," she whispered to herself, holding the keys to apartment 4B. Her hands were shaking a little, but she wasn't sure if it was from excitement or fear. Maybe both. The apartment was small but perfect for her. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room that got beautiful morning light through to big windows. The rent was exactly what she could afford with her new job at the local coffee shop downtown. It wasn't her dream job, but it was a start. On her first night, Maya sat on the floor eating takeout pizza from a paper plate. She didn't have furniture yet, just a sleeping bag and 2 suitcases full of clothes. The silence felt strange after living with roommates in college for 4 years. Every little sound seemed loud, the refrigerator humming, cars passing by outside, her own breathing. That's when she first heard it, a soft thud from somewhere nearby, like someone dropping a book. Then footsteps. Maya looked around her empty apartment, confused. The sounds were coming from the wall next to her bedroom. Must be my neighbor, she thought. The building was old, and she could probably hear everything through these thin walls. She made a mental note to keep her music low and be respectful. Over the next few days, Maya started to notice a pattern. Every evening around 8 o'clock, she would hear movement from the apartment next door. Sometimes it sounded like furniture being moved. Other times, she could hear what seemed like music playing very softly. Once, she was sure she heard someone talking, though she couldn't make out the words. Maya tried to catch a glimpse of her neighbors several times. She would time her trips to get mail or throw out trash to match the sounds she heard. But she never saw anyone. The hallway was always empty, and the door to apartment 4A always looked the same, closed and quiet. Maybe they worked different hours than me, she told herself. Some people worked night shifts or had unusual schedules. It made sense. But something felt off. The building was old, built in the 1920s according to the landlord, and it had its quirks. Sometimes the lights would flicker for no reason. The hot water took forever to warm up, and there was something strange about the wall between her bedroom and apartment 4A. Maya first noticed it on her 5th night. She was lying in her new bed, a simple mattress on the floor until she could afford a frame, when she felt a cold spot near the wall. Not just cool air from an air conditioner, but actually cold, like someone had left a window open in winter. She got up to check, running her hand along the wall, but couldn't find any source for the cold air. The wall itself looked normal, just white paint over what seemed like old plaster. But when she knocked on it gently, it sounded different than the other walls, hollow somehow, like there was extra space behind it. Old buildings are weird, she reminded herself. Maybe there used to be different room layouts years ago. Maybe there were pipes or wiring behind that section. She wasn't an expert on construction. Days turned into weeks, and Maya started to settle into a routine. Wake up at 6, shower, grab coffee and a muffin on the way to work. Spend 8 hours making lattes and serving pastries to busy office workers. Come home tired but happy, heat up something simple for dinner, and relax with a book or her laptop. The sounds from next door became part of her routine too. She started to expect them. Sometimes they were comforting, like knowing she wasn't completely alone in this big building. Other times they made her curious. Who was her mysterious neighbor? Why did they seem to move around so much but never leave their apartment? Maya was naturally friendly in college. She had been the one who introduced herself to everyone on her dorm floor. She baked cookies for new roommates and always said hello to classmates. But something held her back from knocking on her neighbor's door. Maybe it was being in a new place, or maybe something about the sounds felt private, like she would be interrupting something important. One evening, while she was reading near the mysterious wall, Maya heard something that made her heart skip. It sounded like crying, not loud sobbing, but quiet, sad crying that seemed to come from someone trying very hard not to be heard. Maya put down her book and listened carefully. Yes, someone was definitely crying on the other side of that wall. Her first instinct was to do something, to help somehow. But what could she do? Knock on the door of someone she had never met and ask if they were okay? She sat there for almost an hour, listening to the soft sounds of sadness from next door. When it finally stopped, Maya felt like she had shared something intimate with a complete stranger. She wondered what could make someone cry like that, alone in their apartment with no one to comfort them. That night, Maya couldn't sleep well. She kept thinking about her neighbor, wondering if they were okay, wondering if she should have done something. She realized that in all her weeks of living here, she had never heard voices talking to each other from that apartment. No friends visiting, no phone conversations loud enough to hear through the walls. Just one person, moving around alone, and tonight, crying alone. The next morning, Maya made a decision. She would find a way to reach out to her neighbor, somehow. Maybe. They needed a friend just as much as she did. After all, being alone in a new place was hard for everyone. Little did Maya know that her simple act of kindness was about to lead to the most unexpected friendship of her life, and a discovery that would change everything she thought she knew about her new home. Maya woke up the next morning with a plan. She would bake something nice and leave it at her neighbor's door with a friendly note. It was simple, non-threatening, and the kind of thing neighbors did for each other. At least, that's what her mom had always told her after work that day. She stopped by the grocery store and bought ingredients for chocolate chip cookies. Her grandmother's recipe had never failed to make people smile. As the cookies baked, filling her small apartment with warm, sweet smells, Maya felt good about her decision. Everyone loved homemade cookies. She wrote a simple note on a piece of paper. "Hi, I'm your new neighbor in 4B. Welcome to the building. I hope you enjoy these cookies." She drew a small smiley face at the bottom, then immediately worried. It looked childish, but it was too late to rewrite it. Maya waited until she heard the familiar sounds from next door around 8 o'clock. Then she quietly opened her door, placed the plate of cookies and the note in front of apartment 4A, and quickly went back inside. Her heart was beating fast, like she was doing something wrong. But she was excited too. The next morning, Maya checked the hallway before leaving for work. The plate was gone. Her neighbor had taken the cookies. She felt a warm feeling in her chest. Maybe this was the start of a friendship. But days passed, and nothing happened. No note in return, no knock on her door, no thank you left in the hallway. Maya started to wonder if she had done something wrong. Maybe her neighbor was shy, or maybe they didn't want to be friends with anyone. A week later, Maya decided to try talking to Mrs. Chen, the building manager. Mrs. Chen was a small, elderly woman who seemed to know everything that happened in the building. She lived on the first floor and was always sweeping the front steps or checking the mailboxes. "Mrs. Chen," Maya said one afternoon, "I was wondering about my neighbor in 4A. I've been trying to introduce myself, but I never seem to catch them at home." Mrs. Chen looked up from sorting mail, her eyebrows raised in confusion. 4A. "But dear, that apartment has been empty for almost 3 months now. The last tenant moved out in July." Maya felt like the ground had shifted under her feet. Empty? But I hear someone in there every night. Music, footsteps, things moving around. "That's impossible," Mrs. Chen said, shaking her head. "I handle all the rentals myself. 4A is definitely vacant. We're having trouble renting it because it needs some repair work." Maya's mind was racing. If the apartment was empty, what had she been hearing? Who took her cookies? Could someone be staying there without permission? Mrs. Chen's expression became serious. "You think someone broke in? That would be very bad for the building. Let me check." Together, they went upstairs to the 4th floor. Mrs. Chen pulled out a large ring of keys and opened the door to apartment 4A. Maya held her breath, not sure what they would find. The apartment was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no belongings. Nothing. Dust covered the floors, and the windows were dirty. It looked like no one had lived there in months. But Maya's plate sat clean and empty on the kitchen counter. "This is very strange," Mrs. Chen muttered, picking up the plate. "How did this get here?" Maya stared at the empty apartment. The layout was exactly the same as hers, but flipped. Her bedroom wall would be right there. She walked over to the wall and put her hand on it. It felt normal, just like any other wall. Mrs. Chen, has this building ever been renovated? Were the apartments laid out differently before? Oh, yes, many times over the years. This building is almost 100 years old. It used to be a hotel. Then it was divided into smaller apartments, then larger ones. The walls have been moved around quite a bit. Mrs. Chen was looking around the empty space, clearly puzzled. But I still don't understand about your cookies. That evening, Maya sat in her apartment, staring at the wall between her bedroom and 4A. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. The apartment was empty, but someone had taken her cookies. She was hearing sounds, but from where? As if on cue, she heard the familiar soft music starting up. Maya pressed her ear against the wall. The sound was definitely coming from the other side, but they had just been in that apartment. It was completely empty. She knocked on the wall gently. "Hello," she called out softly. "Is someone there?" The music stopped immediately. Maya held her breath, waiting. Then, very quietly, she heard 3 soft knocks back. Someone was definitely there, responding to her. Maya's hands were shaking as she knocked twice more. Again, the same pattern came back from the other side of the wall. Someone was communicating with her. But how could they be in an empty apartment? I don't understand what's happening. Maya said to the wall, feeling a little silly. But I know you're there. I left you cookies. Did you like them? Silence. Then, after a long moment, one single knock. Yes, Maya smiled despite her confusion. I'm Maya. I live right here, on the other side of this wall. I can hear you sometimes, and you seem sad. Are you okay? More silence. Maya waited patiently. Finally, to knocks. No doubt her heart broke a little. Someone was in trouble. Somehow living in that empty apartment, and they were sad. All of Maya's protective instincts kicked in. Growing up with younger siblings had taught her to take care of people. Do you need help? She asked the wall. A long pause. Then, very quietly, one knock. Yes, Maya sat down on her bed, her mind spinning. Someone needed help, but she didn't understand the situation at all. How could they be in an empty apartment? Why were they hiding? Were they in danger? I want to help you, she said to the wall, but I don't know how. Can you tell me what you need? She waited, but no response came. Maybe the person was scared, or maybe they didn't know how to answer such a big question. Over the next few days, Maya developed a routine of talking to the wall every evening. She would tell her mysterious neighbor about her day, ask simple questions that could be answered with knocks, and slowly started to piece together a few facts. The person was alone. They were hungry sometimes. They were definitely sad. And they seemed to be hiding from something or someone. Maya started leaving small things in the hallway outside for granola bars, bottles of water, clean socks. The items always disappeared, but she never saw who took them. It was like having a ghost for a neighbor, except ghosts didn't eat granola bars. The mystery was driving Maya crazy, but she was also becoming attached to her unknown neighbor. Someone needed her help, and that felt important. She just had to figure out how to actually help them. Little did she know that the answer was literally right under her nose, hidden behind layers of old paint and decades of renovations. 3 weeks had passed since Maya discovered that apartment 4A was supposed to be empty. 3 weeks of leaving food in the hallway, talking to the wall, and getting more confused every day. She was starting to worry that maybe she was losing her mind. Maybe the stress of living alone in a new city was making her imagine things. But then she would hear the soft knocks responding to her questions. And she knew someone was really there. On a rainy Thursday evening, Maya was rearranging her bedroom furniture. She had finally saved enough money to buy a proper bed frame, and she was trying to figure out the best way to set up her small room. As she pushed her old mattress away from the wall, something strange caught her eye. There was a tiny gap in the wall near the floor, barely visible unless you were looking at just the right angle. Maya got down on her hands and knees to examine it more closely. The gap was thin, maybe the width of her finger, and it seemed to go deeper into the wall than it should. She pressed her face close to the gap and felt a small breeze of air coming through, air that smelled different from her apartment, dustier, older, like a place that had been closed up for a long time. "That's weird," Maya muttered to herself. She ran her hands along the wall, looking for other gaps or irregularities. About 3 feet up from the floor, she found another strange spot. The wall felt different here, softer somehow, like the material behind the paint wasn't the same as the rest of the wall. Maya went to her kitchen and grabbed a butter knife. Very carefully, she scraped at the paint in the soft spot. Little flakes came off easily, revealing what looked like wood underneath instead of plaster. She scraped a bit more, her heart beating faster as she realized what she might be looking at. It was a board, a piece of wood that had been painted over to look like part of the wall, but it was actually covering something. Maya worked carefully for almost an hour, scraping away paint and gently prying at the edges of the wood. Finally, she managed to loosen one corner. Behind it was darkness, empty space that definitely wasn't supposed to be there. "Oh my God," she whispered. There was a hole in her wall. Not just a hole, it looked like some kind of passage. With shaking hands, Maya used her phone's flashlight to peer into the opening. She could see rough wooden boards on the sides, and what looked like a narrow crawl space leading away from her apartment. The air coming through smelled stale and dusty, like a closet that hadn't been opened in years. Maya sat back on her heels, trying to process what she had found. A hidden passage in her wall, leading somewhere, she realized, probably to apartment 4A. Everything suddenly made sense. The sound she had been hearing, the mysterious person who took her food, the way the empty apartment somehow wasn't empty. Someone was using this hidden passage to live in 4A without anyone knowing. Maya's mind raced through possibilities. Maybe it was someone who couldn't afford rent and was hiding out illegally. Maybe it was someone running from trouble. Maybe it was someone who had nowhere else to go. Her first instinct was to call Mrs. Chen or even the police. Someone was basically breaking into the building, living there without permission. That was against the law, wasn't it? But then she remembered the sad crying she had heard that first night, the way her mysterious neighbor had responded when she asked if they were okay, to knocks for no. Someone was in trouble, and calling the police might make things worse for them. Maya stared at the opening in her wall. She could probably fit through it if she tried. She was small, and the passage looked just big enough for a person to crawl through. She could find out who was living in 4A and what their situation was. Then she could decide what to do. But it could also be dangerous. She didn't know anything about this person except that they were hiding and they were sad. What if they were hiding for a bad reason? What if they got angry at her for discovering their secret? Maya sat on her bedroom floor for almost 2 hours, going back and forth in her mind. The smart thing would be to call Mrs. Chen. The safe thing would be to put the board back and pretend she never found anything. But Maya had never been good at ignoring people who needed help. In college, she was always the one helping classmates with homework, listening to friends' problems, volunteering for charity drives. Her mom used to joke that Maya would bring home every stray cat in the neighborhood if she could. Finally, Maya made her decision. She would go through the passage and find out who was living in 4A. But she would be careful. She would bring her phone, stay close to the opening so she could get back quickly. And if anything felt dangerous, she would leave immediately. Maya changed into old clothes and tied her hair back. She grabbed her phone, made sure it was fully charged, and took a deep breath. Then she carefully squeezed through the opening in her wall. The passage was tight and dark, filled with dust that made her want to sneeze. Maya crawled forward slowly, using her phone's light to see where she was going. The space was cramped but not impossible to navigate. She could see why someone might use it as a secret way between apartments. After what felt like forever but was probably only a few minutes, Maya saw light ahead. Not bright light, just a dim glow that suggested she was reaching the other end of the passage. She crawled toward it, her heart pounding so hard she was sure anyone nearby could hear it. The passage opened into what looked like a closet. Maya carefully pushed aside what seemed to be a loose board and found herself looking into apartment 4A. But it wasn't empty like it had been when she visited with Mrs. Chen. Someone had made this place into a home. There were blankets spread on the floor, a few books stacked neatly in a corner, some clothes folded against one wall. A small camping lantern provided the dim light Maya had seen. It was simple and sparse, but it was definitely someone's living space. And sitting in the middle of it all, looking absolutely terrified, was a young woman about Maya's age. For a moment, neither of them moved or spoke. Maya was still half in the closet, staring in shock at finally seeing her mysterious neighbor. The other woman was frozen like a deer in headlights, clearly panicked at being discovered. "Please don't call the police," the woman finally whispered, and Maya could hear tears in her voice. "Please, I'm not hurting anyone. I just need a place to stay." Maya slowly emerged from the closet, brushing dust off her clothes. "I'm not going to call the police," she said softly. "I'm Maya. I live right next door. I've been leaving you food." The woman's shoulders sagged with relief, and tears started running down her cheeks. "Thank you," she whispered. "The cookies were amazing. Everything you left. Thank you so much." Maya looked around the sparse living space, her heart breaking. "What's your name? How long have you been living here?" "I'm Alex," the woman said quietly. "I've been here for about 2 months. I know it's wrong, but I didn't have anywhere else to go." Maya sat down on the floor across from Alex, making sure to stay far enough away that she wouldn't feel trapped. "Tell me what happened," she said gently. "Maybe I can help." Alex sat in the dim light of her camping lantern, tears still running down her face. Maya could see that she was scared, tired, and probably hadn't had a real meal in days. The sparse living space told a story of someone trying to survive with almost nothing. "You don't have to tell me anything if you don't want to," Maya said gently. "But I've been worried about you for weeks. I heard you crying that first night, and I just wanted to make sure you were okay." Alex wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "You heard that? God, I thought these old walls were thicker. I tried to be quiet. It's okay. I cry sometimes too, especially when I first moved here. Being alone in a new place is hard." Something in Maya's voice seemed to relax Alex a little. She took a shaky breath and looked around her makeshift home. "I guess there's no point in hiding it now. You found me. How did you even discover this place?" Maya asked, genuinely curious. "In that passage, I never would have found it if I hadn't been moving furniture." Alex managed a small smile. "I used to work for a cleaning company. We cleaned this building about 4 months ago, including all the empty apartments. When I was cleaning 4A, I noticed the closet was weird, too shallow compared to the one in 4B. I got curious and started poking around." She gestured toward the closet where Maya had emerged. "It took me forever to figure out how to open the passage from this side. I think it was probably used for storage or something. When this place was a hotel way back when, maybe even for staff, to move between rooms without bothering guests." Maya nodded, fascinated despite the sad situation. "So when you needed a place to stay, I remember this place," Alex finished. "I knew 4A was empty, and I knew about the passage. It seemed like, well, not a good solution, but the only solution I had." "What happened? I mean, how did you end up needing to hide here?" Alex was quiet for a long moment. Maya waited patiently, not wanting to push. Finally, Alex started talking, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was studying art at the community college, working part-time at a coffee shop to pay rent. Everything was going okay. Not great, but okay. Then my roommate moved out suddenly to be with her boyfriend, stuck me with double rent I couldn't afford." Maya felt her heart sink. She knew exactly how expensive rent could be in this city. "I tried to find another roommate, but you know how it is. People want to see the place, meet you, check references. Takes time. Meanwhile, rent was due. I asked my boss for more hours, but business was slow. I picked up extra shifts wherever I could." Alex pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. "I thought I could catch up. I really did. But then my car broke down, and I had to choose between fixing it or paying rent. Without a car, I couldn't get to my job. Without a job, you couldn't pay rent. Maya finished softly. Got evicted 2.5 months ago. The coffee shop job was gone because I missed too many shifts when my car died. I had nowhere to go. My family, well, let's just say asking them for help wasn't an option. Maya wanted to ask why, but something in Alex's tone made her think it was better not to push. Some families were complicated. Some families weren't there when you needed them most. So you've been living here for 2 months, 2 months, and 1 week, Alex said with a bitter laugh. I keep track. At first, I thought it would just be temporary. Maybe a week or 2 until I could figure something out. But finding work when you don't have an address is harder than you'd think. And finding a place to live when you don't have work, it's like a circle you can't break out of. Maya said, understanding completely. Exactly. Alex looked surprised. That Maya got so quickly. I've been doing odd jobs for cash when I can find them. Cleaning houses, walking dogs, anything that doesn't require paperwork. But it's not steady. And it's not enough for a deposit and first month's rent somewhere. Maya looked around the small space again. Alex had made it as comfortable as possible. With what little she had, the blankets were arranged neatly. Her few possessions were organized and clean. Despite everything, she was taking care of herself and maintaining her dignity. How do you shower? What about food? There's a gym a few blocks away that sells day passes for $5. I can shower there, and they don't ask questions. Food, Alex shrugged. I eat cheap. Peanut butter sandwiches, canned soup I can heat. Up with this little camping stove. The stuff you've been leaving me has been like Christmas dinner. Maya felt tears building in her own eyes. Here was someone her own age, trying so hard to survive, making the best of an impossible situation. And she was doing it all alone, hidden away, afraid to ask for help. Alex, Maya said carefully, what if you didn't have to hide anymore? Alex looked up sharply. What do you mean? What if there was another way? What if you could stay here, but legally? What if you had help getting back on your feet? I can't pay rent, Maya. That's the whole problem. What if you could help me with my rent instead? What if you were my roommate? Alex stared at Maya like she had suggested flying to the moon. You don't even know me. I could be crazy. I could be dangerous. I'm literally squatting in this building. Illegally. Maya smiled. You've been my neighbor for weeks, and you've been nothing but considerate. You've been quiet. You cleaned up after yourself. You even responded to my wall knocks. If you were crazy or dangerous, I think I would have figured it out by now. But Maya, I don't have money for deposits or anything like that. I can't even prove I have income, so we'll figure it out together. I have a steady job. I can cover the paperwork stuff. You can help with cleaning, cooking, whatever. We'll split everything equally once you get back on your feet. Alex was crying again. But this time it looked different. Not the hopeless crying Maya had heard through the wall, but something that looked almost like relief. Why would you do that? For me, you don't owe me anything. Maya thought about it for a moment. When I moved here, I was scared and lonely. I didn't know anyone, and this big city felt overwhelming. I kept hoping someone would reach out, be friendly, help me feel less alone. Maybe this is my chance to be that person for someone else. Alex wiped her eyes and looked at Maya with something like hope. Do you really think it could work? I think we won't know until we try. But I'd rather try to help than just pretend I never found you here. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both thinking about the possibilities. Maya was nervous about her impulsive offer, but it felt right. Alex was clearly a good person in a bad situation, and Maya had the power to help change that. There's one problem, Alex said finally, Mrs. Chen. She's going to want to know who I am and why I want to move in. She might recognize me from when I was cleaning the building. Maya grinned. Leave Mrs. Chen to me. I think she'll be more understanding than you expect, especially when she finds out you're the one who's been keeping for a dust-free all this time. For the first time since Maya had met her, Alex actually laughed. It was a real laugh, full of surprise and maybe even a little bit of hope. Okay, Alex said. If you're really sure about this, then, okay, let's try it. Maya reached over and squeezed Alex's hand. We're going to figure this out together, I promise. The next morning, Maya woke up with butterflies in her stomach. She had spent half the night thinking about her conversation with Alex, wondering if she had made the right decision. Offering to help someone was one thing, but asking them to move in with you was huge. What if they didn't get along as roommates? What if Mrs. Chen said no? What if Alex changed her mind? But when Maya knocked softly on the wall at 8 o'clock and heard the familiar 3 knocks back, she felt better. Alex was still there, still willing to try. Maya had a plan. First, she would talk to Mrs. Chen alone. Then, if that went well, she would introduce Alex properly. She had spent her morning getting ready for work thinking about what to say. Mrs. Chen. Maya said when she found the building manager watering plants in the lobby. I have something important to talk to you about. Do you have a few minutes, Mrs.? Chen looked up from her flowers, her expression immediately concerned. Is everything okay, dear? No more strange noises from 4A. Actually, that's exactly what I want to talk about. Maya took a deep breath. I figured out what was happening. There is someone in 4A, and I know who it is. Mrs. Chen's eyebrows shot up. Someone broke in. Should we call the police? No, please don't. Let me explain first. Maya sat down on one of the lobby chairs. Her name is Alex, and she's been staying there because she has nowhere else to go. She lost her job and got evicted, and she's been trying to get back on her feet. Maya, this is very serious. She can't just live in the building without paying rent. It's against the rules, and it's not fair to the tenants who do pay. I know. And that's why I want to fix it. I want Alex to move in with me as my roommate. Officially, with a lease and everything. Mrs. Chen sat down across from Maya, looking surprised. You want a stranger to be your roommate. She's not really a stranger anymore. I've been talking to her for weeks through the wall. She's a good person, Mrs. Chen. She's just had some bad luck. Maya spent the next 20 minutes telling Mrs. Chen everything she knew about Alex. How she had been studying and working before everything fell apart. How she had been careful not to damage anything in the apartment or disturb other tenants. How she was clearly trying her best to survive a difficult situation with dignity. She even kept the apartment clean. Maya pointed out, remember how surprised you were that there was no dust when we checked? That was Alex taking care of the place. Mrs. Chen was quiet for a long time, thinking. Finally, she sighed. Maya, your heart is in the right place, but this is complicated. I can't just ignore that she was living here illegally for months, and I need to know more about her before I can approve her as a tenant. What if you met her? What if she could show you that she's responsible and trustworthy? I suppose that would be a start. But Maya, I have to ask, why are you doing this? You barely know this girl. Maya thought about how to explain it. When I moved here, I felt so alone. I kept hoping someone would be kind to me, help me feel like I belonged somewhere. Alex is alone too, but she's had it so much harder than I did. If I can help her the way I wish someone would help me, then maybe that's what neighbors are supposed to do for each other. Mrs. Chen's expression softened. You remind me of my daughter. She always wants to help everyone too. She paused. Okay, bring Alex to see me tomorrow afternoon. We'll talk, and then I'll decide what to do. Maya felt like jumping up and cheering, but she kept her excitement inside. Thank you, Mrs. Chen. You won't regret this. That evening, Maya crawled through the passage to apartment 4A. She found Alex sitting with one of the books she had been reading, but it was clear she hadn't been focusing on it. How did it go? Alex asked immediately. Mrs. Chen wants to meet you tomorrow. She's willing to consider letting you move in with me officially. Alex's face lit up with hope. Then immediately, clouded with worry. What if she doesn't like me? What if she recognizes me from when I was cleaning and thinks I was planning this all along? Then we'll deal with it. But Alex, I think she's going to surprise you. She's tougher than she looks, but she's also fair. Just be yourself and tell her the truth. They spent the next hour talking about practical things. Alex would need to get some identification documents replaced. Find a way to prove she was looking for work. Maybe get references from some of the people she had done odd jobs for. I kept a notebook, Alex said, pulling out a small, worn journal. Everyone I worked for, what I did, how much they paid me. I thought maybe someday I'd need to show that I was trying. Maya smiled. See, you're more prepared than you think. The next afternoon, Maya and Alex walked down to Mrs. Chen's apartment together. Alex was nervous, fidgeting with her hands and checking her appearance in every reflective surface they passed. I look terrible, Alex muttered. I should have tried to find nicer clothes somewhere. You look fine. Honest and genuine is better than fancy anyway. Mrs. Chen answered her door and looked at Alex with sharp, evaluating eyes. Alex stood up straight and met her gaze respectfully. Mrs. Chen, this is Alex. Alex, this is Mrs. Chen, our building manager. Ma'am, Alex said politely, I want to start by apologizing. I know what I did was wrong. Living in your building without permission. I was desperate, but that doesn't make it right. I'm sorry. Mrs. Chen studied Alex for a long moment. Come in, both of you. Let's sit down and talk properly. For the next hour, Mrs. Chen asked Alex questions about her background, her situation, her plans for the future. Alex answered everything honestly, even the hard questions about her family and why she couldn't ask them for help. My parents, they didn't approve of me going to college for art. They wanted me to get married young and settle down. When I chose school instead, they basically stopped talking to me. Asking them for help now would mean admitting they were right, and I'm not ready to give up on my dreams yet. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. Dreams are important, but so is being practical. Yes, ma'am. That's why I'm grateful Maya's giving me this chance. I can be practical about finding work and paying bills, but still keep working toward my goals. At the end of the conversation, Mrs. Chen was quiet for a long time. Maya and Alex sat nervously, waiting for her decision. Alex, Mrs. Chen finally said, what you did was wrong, but I understand why you did it, and in all my years managing this building, I've never had someone clean an apartment for free just because they were staying there. Alex looked hopeful, but didn't dare speak. I'm willing to add you to Maya's lease as a roommate, with a few conditions. Anything, Alex said quickly. First, you pay Maya whatever portion of rent you can afford each month, even if it's just $20. I want to see that you're contributing. Second, you actively look for steady work. I want to see job applications, interviews, progress. Third, if this arrangement doesn't work out for any reason, you give proper notice before moving out. No more disappearing acts. Yes, Mom, all of that. Thank you so much. Mrs. Chen smiled for the first time since they had arrived. Maya, you're a good neighbor. Alex, don't make me regret this decision. 3 months later, Maya and Alex were sitting in their apartment, officially their apartment now, laughing over dinner. Alex had found a job at an art supplies store downtown and was taking evening classes at the community college again. She had also started selling small paintings at a local farmer's market on weekends. Remember when you thought I might be a ghost? Alex asked, grinning. Hey, you were pretty mysterious. Living in an empty apartment, communicating through wall knocks. What was I supposed to think? I still can't believe you crawled through that dusty passage to find me. You could have just called the police. Maya shrugged. I'm glad I didn't. This worked out way better. They had kept the passage open, though they didn't use it much anymore. Sometimes it was handy when one of them locked themselves out, or when they wanted to surprise each other with a cup of coffee. Mostly, it was just a reminder of how they had met, a story they loved telling people, though they usually had to convince others that it was really true. You know what the best part is? Alex said, looking round their cozy living room. What? I have a home again. Not just a place to stay, but a real home, with a real friend. Maya smiled. Yeah, me too. Outside their window, the city lights twinkled like stars, and inside their apartment, two friends who had found each other in the most unexpected way were building a life together, one day at a time.